One. Greetings, everyone. I am Pete Pardo from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to another episode of Friday Morning at the Fun House alongside the most fun gentleman on the face of the earth, Mr. Martin Popoff. What's going on, Martin?
Yes, morning.
Good to see you. It's been 2 weeks, man.
Yeah,
Good to
I
see you.
know. It's been a while. Yeah, good to get back in the saddle. We may be a little rusty, but we'll see how this goes. But fall is here. It's cold in Toronto. It's been up and down, but yeah, fall is definitely here. So
I gotta tell you, I mean, the last week it's been a little warmer than it was the week prior, but we have the chilly nights. I tell you, the the leaves are in full bloom. I've been driving, going to see my dad. I've been driving back and forth to Poughkeepsie every day across the bridge across the Hudson, and man, the leaves are like turning yellow and orange and red all over the place. It's quite pretty, actually. So yeah, we're entering into a really
cool.
good season here
Very
in
cool.
the Hudson Valley. So pretty good to see. So yeah, we're back after last week's unplanned absence, and today we're going to finish off our Riff series. We're going to do the 2000s. Martin, I don't know about you, but then we haven't even talked about this. I found this one extremely difficult because, with the riffs of the 70s and of the 80s, and even to an extent the 90s, these are songs that we have lots and lots of history with. From the 2000s, we're looking at albums that we don't have a ton of history with, but we know there's lots of great riffs. And I started putting my list together, and I'm like, Jesus, there's like millions of great riffs over the last, 24 years. And, but yet, you have to go, they're not as like stuck in the brain memorable, I think, as some of the older ones, obviously, because of all that time that we have with those. So it was really interesting, like kind of picking bands for me that I know I love their riffs, but then having to go through albums and songs and reminding myself, well, which ones are the killer riffs that I really like the most? So all sorts of weird stuff, genre-wise, all over the place here. And I'm sure there's a lot that I missed. Martin, I hope you got Clutch on your list because I totally forgot to include Clutch at all. And they have a million great riffs in the 2000s, I think. So spoiler alert, I don't have any Clutch on my list, but for all you Clutch fans, I wish I did because I know I kind of failed on that, and I should have had a couple. But anyway, with all that being said, we got 40.
Yeah.
We're gonna go 10 at a time, just like we've done rapid fire through these, and Martin will kick us off with his first 10.
Yeah, it's funny you say that about sticking in the head. So half of mine are a bit like that, where I'm making a statement and saying, look, I've picked something, but there's a lot by this band that could have, but they have to be represented. And then the
Yes.
other half have stuck in my head way too much. Like they literally go through my head possibly daily sometimes, some of these riffs. Like they're just songs that, and then,
Yeah, there are some of those. Yeah.
yeah, you habituate into playing that album a lot as well, and it just over and over and over. So it's almost like that. I've said this before, but I remember having a chat with Devin Townsend one day, where we talked about recent albums and the flood of them and the fire hose of albums, and his opinion, and we had a chuckle about this because we both sort of aligned on this. Is like, if you ask me my top 20 albums of the last 10 years or whatever, right? They'll be like, and to rate them, there'll be three that'll be rated like 10,400 out of 10. And then the rest will be like fours out of tens, right? So it's like you just get into a habit. You play certain things over and over and over again, right? So, anyways, with that done, let's get into this. So number 40, I've got Porcupine Tree, Blackest Eyes, the opening track from In Absentia. I just loved that this was a cool kind of geometric all over the place. It was very memorable. It's the first thing they hit you with on the album. It's like, okay, this really sort of defines the new Porcupine Tree. So I went with that.
And another band I forgot. Yeah, they do have lots
Oh,
of
yeah.
good. Yeah.
Next, I went with Still Raising Hell from Ted Nugent, Love Grenade. Just a killer, absolute barnstormer, high tempo, traditional sort of Ted riff. Great production on this album. Definitely wanted him represented here. Next, I went with Graham Bonnet Band, Imposter. Very complicated, a Jeff Coleman almost like riff, because Graham Bonnet, there's the whole breakup with Alcatraz, but I thought this was him just doing really cool, interesting hard rock, heavy metal things. Note Dance, it's the lead track on 2022's Day Out of Nowhere. And I thought, just for kicks, let's put in Born Innocent from Alcatraz, the title track, opening track from the last album with Graham, 2020. Then I went Voivod, The Getaway, from Couture's. Voivod had a hard time. There's so many great riffs of basically two different kinds. And I went with the more catchy punk rocky Jasonic era hit you right between the eyes sort of riffs. So I went with that. And by the way, I pulled out physicals for about maybe 5 out of each batch of 10 here, kind of thing. Oh yeah, and there's my Couture's promo version. And next I went with the Happy Little Boozer from Corpa Clanny. Love that song. Play it all the time. Happy little boozer. It's awesome, right? And so that's one that's hilariously stuck in my head. Next, I went with Oblivion from Mastodon, first track on Crack the Sky, 2009. I remember at the time interviewing these guys a lot. I know you're gonna have some Mastodon, yeah. But I play these albums in the car and I try to get acclimated to them, and they never stick. They never go in the head because there's so many riffs and so many things going on. But I definitely had to represent them. And then I had Earth Rocker Clutch, just a good absolute up-tempo rocker, not one of their bluesier songs, more like a punk rocky Clutch song, but play that over and over and over again all the time, that album. Then I went with Motorhead, Living in the Past from Kiss of Death. There's so many great Phil riffs all over all the Motorhead albums. I had a hard time picking, but I definitely had to have him have them represented. And then I went with Blast Tyrant, or no, Cypress Grove from Blast Tyrant. I think this comes up later on my list as well. Yeah, it does. But yeah, the Blast Tyrant album, one of my favorite albums of the time. That was the other thing. I wanted to make that statement of, like, even if I can't remember the riff in my head, I know these guys have a lot and they have to be represented. Or I made that statement of, this is one of my favorite albums. So for that reason, mixed in with the more scientific, less emotional thing of what is the riff, it's like, no, this album is one of my favorites. Got to be in here. So there you go, 40 to 31.
Yeah, I mean, Blast Tyrant, you can almost pick any song on that album on this list, right? There's great riffs all over that album. Yeah, cool. I'm glad we got Clutch represented. That's important, because I couldn't believe I was actually picking stuff here right before we started taping, and I looked over on my shelf to see, and I'm like, oh, Clutch! How the hell did I forget Clutch? I'm like, and I know, like, someone got on us for the 90s episode that we didn't include any Clutch, and I remember saying to that person, oh, don't you worry, they'll pop up in the 2000s. And I completely spazzed on. I'm like, whatever. All right, so number 40 for me, I'm going to go with Celtic Frost, Progeny, off of the great comeback album Monotheist. It's almost doomy. It's just big, huge, and just bottom heavy, and absolutely crushing, and dark, and depressing, and yeah, great stuff from Tom G. Warrior. Number 39, here's a band that when I was putting my original list together, I had probably like 8 from this band, and there's so many good ones. And I ultimately went with just one on my list, but it's great. And it's Lucifer, Purple Pyramid, from the first album. Just absolutely classic. The great thing about Lucifer and all their riffs on their albums is just that it's just so retro, just kind of doomy, kind of bluesy 70s hard rock, just absolutely amazing, but really, really memorable. A lot of cool, just kind of just, I don't know. There's this groove to them, and they're just heavy enough. Really, really love them. Number 38, how about Nevermore, Enemies of Reality, the title track? Jeff Loomis, great riff master, all sorts of great guitar work and riffs on all these Nevermore albums. You're going to see them again on my list. Title track from that album, just absolutely love it. Number 37, I didn't pull any of their albums, but man, I could have filled up my list, half of this list, with riffs from these guys. The great death metal band Nile, Sarcophagus from In Their Darkened Shrines. Man, I don't think there's any heavier riffs than these guys. Just absolutely bludgeoning, and some of them are slow and grinding, and some are fast as light and really technical, but this one just absolutely killer. Sarcophagus from Nile. Number 36, going to go with Asterolus, the great octopus from Candlemass, from the Door to Doom, featuring Tony Iommi on a little guitar solo there. I mean, Candlemass, another band that we could fill up half our list with great riffs from this band, the Swedish Doomsters. Candlemass. Next up, I'm going to go with Crowbar, New Dawn, from Life's Trodden for the Downtrodden, Life's Blood for the Downtrodden. I always want to say that backwards. Again, Crowbar, another band, kind of the great sludge band, hardcore meets doom, meets stoner. So many great riffs on their albums. Really, really heavy stuff. New Dawn from that album. Number 34, I'm going to go with Judas Rising from Judas Priest, from Angel of Retribution. Killer riff, band is back. Great comeback from them. Killer kickoff song, one of my great favorite album openers from them. Number 33, I'm going to go Testament, More Than Meets the Eye, from the Formation and Damnation album. I mean, just amazing killer technical riffage all throughout this album. And I remember when this album first came out, we were so happy to have that classic lineup back together once again. Just a killer riff from them. That's number 33. Number 32, I'm going to go with The Baying of the Hounds by Opeth from Ghost Reveries. Kind of like Opeth meets Uriah Heep on this thing. It's got the Hammond organ from Per Wiberg and the guitars. It's just so awesome, so Opeth. That's my number 32. And then the last one for this list is going to be, hold on, In the Name of God by Dream Theater from the Trade of Thought album. It's got this kind of Middle Eastern thing going on in the beginning, and then the riff just kind of crushes and just so good. Heavy album full of great riffs. We'll be seeing this again on my countdown, but yeah, In the Name of God was my last one for this round.
Nice. I'm glad we're getting all this variety here. You're running through all these bands we talked to so many times and reviewed and had in Brave Words and Bloody Knuckles all through that period, right? Because we went up to 2008 in print, and then obviously it kept going on. But yeah, it's interesting. Very cool. Okay, so number 30, I'm going with Killing Time from The Sick, the Dying, and the Dead, Megadeth 2022. That album is so impressive. It's so full of great songs, great riffs, hooky riffs that are heavy at the same time. I mean, Megadeth absolutely had to be represented, and look how many albums there are, right? I mean, they definitely, this could be full of Megadeth riffs because they are very accessible at the same time, which is really cool. From them. Next, I went to 29, Judas Priest Trial by Fire, the slow Sabbathy one from Invincible Shield, and with the odd time signature drop down. Yeah, really cool.
It's like a rock and roll song, it's great.
Yep. Next, I went with Safe Home from We've Come for You. Come for You. Oh man, this is such a hard title all the time, but yeah, just a really cool anthemic, big chorus on it as well, and just a classic, cool urban sort of Anthrax riff. Next, I went with Freight Train from 2020 from Vandenberg from the year 2020. Yeah, kind of like one of his cool kind of butt shaking rock and rolling kind of riffs, note dance, or sort of rainbowish actually kind of thing. Next, I went with Michael Schenker group Dust to Dust from Tales of Rock and Roll, which is such a weird, loose, cool new wave of Swedish heavy metal sort of album. It's so European sounding. So I really like that. I mean, I had a few different choices from Michael. I think Arachnophobia I was looking at. I think that's a 2000's album. Yeah. But yeah, there's some really cool stuff from Michael. Maybe Michael shows up later. I can't remember. Anyways, next I've got 25 Dictators, Avenue A from DFFD. This album I played over and over and over again. I so wanted to pick Who Will Save Rock and Roll because that song is one of my most played songs from the 2000s, but I went and played it and it's just not a riff. It's just chords. It's just Ross going, dah, dah, dah. It's amazing, right? And the solo he does on that is just one of the greatest guitar solos, especially seeing that live. So I had to pick something from here, and Avenue A is pretty darn riffy. So I went with that. Next, I want to give tribute to Simon McBride for Portable Door off the new Deep Purple album, 2024. A great riff. There's a lot of good riffs on there. I went through a lot of Deep Purple and realized that those songs are so sturdy and strong that they're no longer really based on riff that often, right? But yeah, there's so many great Deep Purple songs. Number 23, The Reincarnation of Benjamin Brieg, Iron Maiden for Matter of Life and Death. Just a very cool, again, I went through a lot of Maiden, and there's a lot of Maiden chordal sort of things, songy kind of things, but this one is actually really cool. Overkill, Shine On from The Grinding Wheel, 2017, really monotone, again, kind of like a butt shaking rock and rolly Overkill riff. There are so many great Overkill riffs throughout all these things. Again, same kind of thing where some of your bands that you picked, Nile, Testament, Candlemass even, right? We could just go through them all. These are bands that base songs around riffs, and we could just find so many, right? And then Poundhound, Darker, kind of a slower, bluesier kind of riff, but man, this album I played a lot. And the second one, unfortunately, Pineapple Skunk, whatever it's called, there aren't that many great riffs, but it's got a couple really cool songs. But Darker is really cool on here. Boy, this album really lines up with Tapehead. So yeah, very cool thing from From Doug, when he writes riffs, they're more basic, generally speaking. He is more chordal because he's more or less writing from a bass point of view. They're not particularly note dense. So there you go. That's my 30 through 21.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned Overkill. I mean, there's just a ton of great riffs on like a lot of their recent albums. I found it really difficult with bands like Overkill and Testament and like Saxon, who just a lot of their more recent output is just totally based on great riffs. And it's like all of a sudden you're just like you have like 12 choices for each one. You're like, oh, this just you only have so many rooms. I mean, we did 40, which is a lot, but it's like we could have done like 100 for this episode, and we still would have stuff left over. All right, so number 30 for me is going to be we're going to go to Sweden again. Witchcraft, the great band Witchcraft. If Crimson Was Your Color, terrific doom riff in that. Again, another band early on in their career had so many great memorable doom riffs for folks who love like Pentagram and Sabbath and Candlemass and Trouble and old bands like that. So that's number 30. Number 29, I'm going to go with She's the Woman from Van Halen from A Different Kind of Truth. Yeah, we're kind of cheating here because that is an old riff that they just never put on an original official album, and then they did it all these years later. But man, Eddie just so good on that. Great, great killer riff. So memorable. Next up, we're gonna go to the title track to Judas Priest's Firepower. Great song. Great song, great album. Another, great collection of riffs on here. And there's more on this album. I mean, there's a lot of really cool riffs on the most recent Judas Priest album. So I could have had easily 10 of them on this list. But yeah, Firepower number 28. Number 27, we're going to go with the great California progressive metal band Zero Hour for the title track to The Towers of Avarice. Absolutely amazing, face melting technical riffage on that song. And this band is another one that's got a lot of them. Every song is based on some kind of really cool, memorable, complicated riff. But we're going to go with The Towers of Avarice from them. That's 27. 26. I'm going to go with Bad Man Walking from Government Mule. Got to have some mule on here because Warren Haynes is another really cool riff master. And this one is just awesome because it's kind of funky. It's kind of jammy. It's got that Southern rock bluesy thing going on. Really, really cool song. That's my number 26. 25, going to go Iced Earth, Damien from the Horror Show album. Again, this band, ton of riffs. I think we kind of missed them in the 90s show. But John Schaefer, killer rhythm guitar player, lots of great riffs, and the Damien riff is just so kind of evil sounding. It really kind of works well with the lyrical content of the song, which of course Damien the Omen. Number 24, Black Label Society, Zakk Wylde. We're going to go All For You, the kickoff track to this Stronger Than Death album. Really, really cool. I mean, Zakk has another guy with a million great riffs. It's a raging riff, and he throws in those pinch harmonics, It's like, all right, as soon as you hear Zakk, it's Zakk, right? I mean, just absolutely trademark.
He has 25 riffs that could have made some of the very best Pantera songs of all time.
So 100%.
Another reason why he's perfect in the new Pantera.
Yes, I totally agree. Totally agree. He's just got that sound. That's what he does best. You either love it or you don't. But I personally think that he is one of the great riff masters of the more modern era. Just so good. Number 23, I didn't pull it, but Immortal, One by One. Immortal, one of those black metal bands that just have so many killer riffs. This is off the Sons of Northern Darkness album, and it's kind of like their black metal meets thrash album. The production is monstrous. The riff is killer. Go check it out if you never heard it. One by One by Immortal. Number 22 is the title track to Symphony X's Iconoclast, Michael Romeo. Man, it's so complex. And the great thing is there's a cavalcade of riffs all throughout the song. So you can pick whichever one you like. They're all amazing. Iconoclast number 22. And my last one for this section is Opeth, the Sorceress title track from the Sorceress album. It's just big and doomy. Opeth doesn't really do doom, but occasionally they do crank out a slow, punishing doom riff, and that is just so good. And this is a great album. It just has prog and hard rock and folk and psych, everything, metal, everything thrown in. And man, I just love that back cover. It's so cool. So yeah, that's my last one for this round.
Very cool. All right. My number 20, I'm going with Sure You Will from OSI from the Free album 2006. It's kind of like a bass riff that's joined by guitar and keyboards. It's a very up-tempo. Love Kevin Moore to death. The only OSI album I don't play very much or at all is the first one. It's too conservative for me, but the rest of the catalog, I've just been playing this stuff for the last few years, because I just love Kevin Moore. I love Graveyard Mountain Home so much. It's so cool. But yeah, OSI. Next, I've got King's X Blacklight Sunday. I went through a lot of King's X looking for great riffs, and I was finding much of that is quite chordal, and even this one is. This is kind of like a bluesy tune, but I just find it to be like a cool kind of stadium rock sort of sound, and it's just a very catchy, excellent heavy song. Here's a weird choice. Emotional Skies from Falconer, Grime and Grandeur.
Oh, that's a good
power
album.
metal.
Yeah,
Man, that song has stuck in my head so much. When we did the power metal episode for Metal Evolution, I interviewed these guys and we talked about them a lot for some reason. I guess they were pretty big around that time. For the power metal episode, and that song is just one of those that just goes through my head all the time because it's also percussive at the same time.
Yeah, that's good. There's good stuff on there. That's a Jack Toledano favorite, that band.
Is it? Cool.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay, and then I've got Mercury from Blast Tyrant. Again, I could have just gone all through this whole album. I just love the way that they're kind of like stoner rock mixed with doom, mixed with bluesy stuff, mixed with a little bit of a hardcore feel at times, maybe more out of Neil's vocal than anything. But yeah, Mercury from this. And then I went with another weird choice, Flat Pack Philosophy from the Buzzcocks. This is another album that was one of these habitual, I get into the car, it's just like one of the top 10 choices I just gravitate to all the time. It's heavy, it's beautifully produced, this album, and it's just a really cool riffy song with some, odd time signature stuff in it as well, but just a really cool anthemic title track from that. Next I went with Yesterday Don't Mean Shit from Reinventing the Steel, which we renamed our little new contrarian thing we're doing. What is it? Reliving old reviews is a useless tool of confusion. That's a quote from that song. So that's a little thing we're doing, these 5-minute clips where I'm reviewing an old ancient review at the time of something from the early 70s or whatever. But I just always, we just, soon as we heard that lyric when this album came out, we just thought it was so funny. Reliving old reviews, like, because we're working for Brave Words, right? We're like immersed in this writing record review sort of climate, and here's Phil going, reliving old reviews is a useless tool. It can, you imagine those guys sitting down flipping through their old magazines reading reviews of old Pantera albums. It's just so funny, right? But that riff is like, it's such a cool little secret agent man riff off of that as well. 14, I've got Liquor from Mescalero, ZZ Top. Just such a cool little weird production values, but the riff is just traditional, up tempo kind of a bluesy kind of riff, but it's just such a cool little sparse thing that they do there. Then I've got Motorhead again with When the Eagle Screams from Motorizer 2008. Complex, halftime, technical, groovy. I mean, Motorhead has 6 or 7 or 8 different things they do, and they show up, there's usually one of those on these albums as they're coming fast and furious, but this is one of those cool technical ones. Then I love the Angels Talk the Talk from the Talk the Talk album 2014, Angel City Angels. That is just a gorgeous, really cool. It would have been one of the greatest AC/DC songs of all time had they done it. It's not even flashy, it's not showy, it's just a really great emotional AC/DC style, Angel style riff. And then I went with Water from Dark Matters, The Stranglers 2021. Just a cool geometric, cool sort of Stranglers, post-punk riff. They have a lot of actually cool riffs. It's neat when they do this, but that album really made an impression on me. Interviewed the guys for it and just play it all the time kind of thing. So that is my 20 through 11.
So I'm just sitting here thinking, you mentioned the ZZ Top pick, which is a good one. I'm just sitting here thinking, I'm like, why do I not remember if we represented ZZ Top enough in that 70s show we did?
Yeah, I'm not sure about 70s. I remember I had I think Rhythmine from Rhythmine on the 90s show.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
I have this feeling that I just completely spazzed on ZZ Top in the 70s show.
Yeah.
Because now that I'm thinking about it, I could have picked easily 5. Easily.
I had Nasty Dogs and Funky Kings in there. I might have had Heard It on the X, something like that. Just got paid.
Got paid, right? I mean,
in.
Brown Sugar. I mean, I could have easily picked the whole
Master
bunch
of Sparks.
Yeah. I need to go back and rewatch that because I don't
Yeah.
remember if I picked any, and I should have.
Oh
But
yeah.
now I'm feeling bad. I'm like, God, Billy, I'm sorry, man.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
crazy. All right. My number 20, I'm going to go with Megalodon from Mastodon from the Leviathan record. I mean, the first time I heard this album, just the riffs on here, just absolutely immense. And this one is just kind of has this like King Crimson Red era kind of feel to it, which I think is really, really cool. It's kind of twisting and weaving, just really good stuff. Number 19, I'm going to go with Corrosion of Conformity, Paranoid Opioid, which takes me back to early 70s Sabbath. Gotta love that, right? So good. I mean, Corrosion, a lot of great riffs all throughout the 90s and the 2000s. Number 18, I'm gonna go with the title track. Well, not the title track, the first track, right? Yeah, first track off of Dead Heart in a Dead World from Nevermore, Narcosynthesis. More great riffing from Mr. Loomis. Killer stuff. Call it thrash, call it power metal. I don't know, whatever you want to call it. It's great. Next up, number 17, gonna go with, where is it? Gonna go with Wandering Child from Government Mule, Warren Haynes once again from the Life Before Insanity album. Again, it's kind of cool riff. It's got a slide in there too. It's just really nasty and grimy sounding. Really, really good stuff. That's my pick for number 17. Number 16, where is it? Let's do a little power metal, shall we? Primal Fear, Angel in Black from Nuclear Fire, just face melting stuff. I love the riffs on the Primal Fear albums. I love the production. I mean, this is what you talk about. Total overdriven, distorted guitars. There's lots of them. Usually, there's like three guitar players in the band, although usually one guy just plays the riffs. But man, just killer riffs on all their albums. I had to have them represented here at least once, and that's my favorite, Angel in Black. Number 15, I'm going to go with Nile again. What Should Not Be Unearthed, the title tracks of that great album. Man, just so heavy. It's death metal, but yet it's kind of doomy, and it's just there's so much weight to it. I listen to some of these Nile riffs, and I'm just like, it kind of just knocks me to the floor. They're so heavy. Like the riff just goes in your ear, Martin, and just adds like 100 pounds to your body weight, and boom, down to the floor you go. Just absolutely punishing stuff. That's my number 15.
Does Nile to you feel like a band that exists in an alternate reality? Like they just don't
Sort of. They're
you
not
don't
like
feel
any
like
other
they're
band.
part of the regular press run. They kind of disappear. No one talks about them, but yet they're still big. It's a very weird band, eh?
To me, they're the coolest death metal band going today. And you're right, they don't sound like anybody else. Each album they put out is so amazing, but yet they don't get the accolades they deserve. And then you're right, they tour, they disappear for 3-4 years, they come back with another album. Everybody's like, "Oh, holy cow, this is the greatest Nile album ever. We love it." They disappear again. Meanwhile, everybody talks about Cannibal Corpse and all the other death metal bands all the time. And I'm like, to me, Nile is just what I love so much about Nile, Martin, is that they scratch that kind of proggy thing that I love so much, and they scratch that doomy thing that I love so much because their music is so complicated and so damn heavy. It's and just the soloing and the meticulous production and the cool like Egyptian and H.P. Lovecraft like lyrical content. It's just so weird and different. I just absolutely love them. And again, they're another band, like I said earlier, I could have a ton of Nile riffs on this list. So good. And What Should Not Be Unearthed is just absolutely amazing. My number 14, I'm going to go with The Glass Prison from Dream Theater from this great album called 6 Degrees of Inner Turbulence. Killer stuff. Just absolutely crushing. And I love that the way that that little wow wow lick gets thrown in there as well from Petrucci. Just so
Keep
good.
talking. I'm going to grab an album cover, a doppelganger. I want to show you against that. Pretty weird.
Okay, you got it. Yep, I'll keep it handy. Next up, number 13, I'm going to go with Devil Seed from Candlemass from King of the Grey Islands. Again, could have a ton of Candlemass riffs on this show. They have not stopped producing great riffs all throughout the 2000s. So this is a band for close to 40 years that's just been delivering one killer riff after another. What do you got?
Yeah, hold that up. Maybe it's not as close as I thought, but I thought this was pretty funny. Uh, oh, it is pretty close.
Yeah, it is. It
Manic
is.
Street Preachers. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Pretty weird. Same
Yeah.
colors, right?
Similar colors, similar kind of washed out background.
Reversed
You
on
got
the
the
on the text. Yeah.
lettering in white, mine's in black or whatever the hell it is. Yeah.
Weird.
There's probably a ton of those. I mean, I know you guys on the Contrarians have
Yeah.
done shows like
Yeah.
that, but yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, Candlemass number 13, number 12. I'm gonna go with where is it? Hold on. New Orleans is a dying whore from Down. So great, great song. I mean, this one has serious, serious heft to it. Again, another great Down album, and I love the wah wah on it. I love how, Pepper and company used these big, heavy, doomy, sludgy riffs, and that little touch of wah wah just makes all the difference for me. That's my number 12, and my last one for this part. Number 11 is White Walls from Between the Buried and Me. A killer progressive extreme metal song, a killer album, and that whole like when he and it does it's not even the riff from the beginning, but it like kicks in, and just takes you through. It's just so good, and when it hits, it's so dramatic and just absolutely killer. This is an amazing album for those who like progressive metal, a little bit on the extreme side. Between the Buried and Me, such a killer band, and that is my number 11.
Okay. All right. So my number 10, I'm going to start with Europe, the Getaway Plan. The verse on that, it's just they're just so classy with what they do. And a lot of the songs are based around the riff. So this is Secret Society 2006. And then you get this great solo section, which has a whole different riff to it. So cool. Now here's
I should have picked War of Kings because I absolutely love the riff in that. I totally spazzed on Europe. Yeah, there's a lot of good ones from their recent catalog. Great pick.
So when I did my big, massive reviews book of the 2000s with David Perry, 600,000 word book, Collector's Guide to Heavy Metal, the 2000s. I actually rated this the greatest album of the 2000s, and people were like, "Wow, that is a weird choice," because I played this all the time. Fozzy, All That Remains.
Really
not
good
a
album.
covers
Yep.
album, just an actual one where they, it's all originals and stuff. But Wanderlust on here is such a killer, huge riff. I love Rich Ward's songwriting stuff, but what I love about that song a lot as well, it's got my favorite Zakk Wylde solo of all time in it, and one of my top 10 guitar solos of all time. It's just an insanely cool solo. It's got that kind of John Sykes, Baby Please Don't Go, going up the scales and down kind of thing. But yeah, this band has actually a lot of really cool riffs. So
They do a lot of memorable songs on that album, big time.
Yeah. It's a good album. And next I've got AC/DC Stiff Upper Lip. It was hard to find too many good AC/DC ones, but that song has just always stood out to me. And the way everything supports the riff and when it kicks in, it's just a magic AC/DC moment of the later years. Although that just makes it because it is 2000. Next, we've got Ted Nugent back with Change My Sex from Craveman. What a killer, insanely, again, up-tempo, gorgeously recorded, yet traditional riff. This album has lots of great heavy riffs on it, as does Love Grenade. Love that album. Look at that back cover. Funny picture of Ted there, right?
Looking serious.
Yeah. Next I've got Billy F. Gibbons and West Coast Junkie 2021 from Hardware. Just love that song. That's one of the most catchiest, insanely fun songs of the last 5 years or so. Right. Great riff as well. Next, I wanted the Manic Street Preachers represented. So I've got Send Away the Dragons. Huge molten sort of electric guitar tone on here. It's one of the few. I mean, this is more of a chordal, post Brit pop kind of band, but quite heavy band. And it's a heavy riff, and it is a riff, and it's just a great song. But I wanted them represented because this is one of my top 3 or 4 most played bands of the last 20 years, along with a lot of Clutch and a lot of the Damned as well. So we've got that. Next, we've got Porcupine Tree, Fear of a Blank Planet, up-tempo, octave jumping, kind of cool riff, kind of roiling, mathematic, geometrical. But this is my favorite album by them, and played this lots and lots over the last few years. Next, I've got another one of these that just sticks in my head so much. Let's see, is there anything different on that? No, it's about the same. Hammers of Misfortune, The Grain from 17th Street, 2011. And then it's got this kind of pomp rock sort of song on it called The Day the City Died. But The Grain is one of those songs. Do you ever do that thing? Maybe there's a show in here, but do you ever do that thing where you listen to a song and one of the things you love about it is that you have this little fantasy that, boy, I wish Iron Maiden would have wrote that song, or if they were writing songs like that. The Grain is like that. You think of like One Stick, yeah, Long Stick Goes Boom, and you go, oh, I'd love to see AC/DC open with that song one day, just blow everybody's mind or whatever. So this is a song that I think just sounds like, man, this is like top shelf Iron Maiden writing. If Iron Maiden heard this, it would probably change the way they thought about what they were doing, right? So yeah, The Grain is just so incredible. Just a masterpiece song from here. Next, I'm going with this guy, Snowy Shaw, with Nachtgeist from White is the New Black. That is just such a crushing low tuned, and there's a video to go along with it. So I recommend anybody go watch the video to Nachtgeist off of this. You will love the riff, but you'll also love the video. It's just, he does everything himself. He's an absolute genius, this guy. Krampus is pretty cool as well. But Nachtgeist is just such a sinister, cool, doomy black metal kind of riff. And just a really accessible song. Very, very catchy. Played this a lot. And finally, yeah, I should have pulled this one, but Clutch, X-Ray Visions from Psychic Warfare 2015. Probably my most played song of the last 20 years. I just, incessantly, habitually, embarrassingly, I'm like thinking, why am I playing this song over and over again? This is ridiculous. Go play some other music, right? Yeah. And, you think of the video and they sit him down and here's a pad of paper, write down what you remember. First thing I remember, and then, tap a wooden nickel and all that stuff. What a great, great lyric and just such an accessible, cool song. So there you go. That's my 10 through 1.
All right. All right. So let's finish mine here. Number 10, we're going to go back to the Down 2 album. Going to go with Beautifully Depressed. Might be my favorite riff on the album. It's groovy. It's so heavy. The first album is the heavy album in the catalog, but this album has a lot more different variety to it. It's still pretty damn heavy. It's just kind of groovy, southerny, swampy, whatever. It's great stuff. Number 9, I'm going to go back to Nile again. I'm going to do the title track to the Annihilation of the Wicked. Just absolutely amazing. Just bludgeoning, crushing riff that just like grabs you by the throat and pulls you right in. Number 8, I probably could have ranked this one higher because I just absolutely love it to death. It is Serpent's Kiss from Symphony X from the Paradise Lost album. I mean, I love how the drum starts off and then you get the pick scrape going up the neck and then just so good. Absolutely amazing. Michael Romeo, just a killer riff master. Number 7, I'm going to go with, where is it? I'm going to go with the title track to Opeth's Deliverance album. Again, it's not the riff that opens the song. It's the riff that ends the song and takes you through the final like 3 minutes of the song. It just goes on and on and on. You get all these kind of cool guitar things going on in the background. That riff just keeps pummeling you and pummeling you. So good. When you see him live, it's great with all the lights and everything. Amazing stuff. Next up, I'm going to go back to Corrosion of Conformity. We're going to go to the No Cross, No Crown album, to the Luddites. Takes you back to the 90s. I mean, this is like one of their more recent albums or their most recent album. And this just sounds like, those classic early 90s albums all over again. Real heavy, real juicy, great riff. Number 5, I'm going to go to Dream Theater once again, As I Am from Train of Thought. That opening riff is slow, heavy, crushing, and then they move right into Metallica zone. This album's got so many great riffs. That's easily my favorite of the 2000s from them. So good. And then the final 4, we're going to go to Mastodon. I'm going to go with the Czar. Comes in at about the halfway point and man, just kicks ass. All these kind of cool things in the beginning, but then that crushing riff in the middle just absolutely obliterates everything. It's so good. This is such a great album. Crack the Sky. That's my number 4. My number 3, I'm going to go back to Sweden. For Meshuggah on the Nothing album, I'm going to go with Stenga. Sometimes, Martin, simple is heavy. I mean, it's groovy. It's just bottom heavy. It's so good. And again, it just obliterates everything in its path. That's the one thing I love about Meshuggah. You can do very, very simple riffs, but just kind of change the time signature and the tempos a little bit. And all of a sudden it's like becomes this polyrhythmic gem, man. Just so good. So yeah, Stenga, number 3. Number 2 could be number 1. I'm going to go with, Let me grab the correct album here. Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? All the way at the bottom. All right, number two, I'm going to go with Iron Tusk from Mastodon. So you've got Jesus, what's that famous riff that you always talk about? I'm drawing a blank on it now. I'm going to call it the Hercules riff. You have another name for certain riffs. I can't. I'm
Geronimo riff.
the Geronimo riff. You got the Geronimo riff. I got the Hercules riff. To me, Iron Tusk is the Hercules riff. And it just sounds like you're on a boat with the waves thrashing and a big beast of a whale flying and swimming underneath. Just so good. Just absolutely amazing. That's my number two, and my number one is going to be the Leper Affinity from Opeth's Blackwater Park. The kickoff track, it's just amazing. It's snaking, it's snarling, it's kind of proggy. It's just absolutely amazing. It's for a death metal riff. It's just really progressive and really cool and just so memorable. I mean, Ackerfeld has just come up with some great riffs over the career of Opeth, and most people cite this as the greatest Opeth album ever, and it has some of their great songs, of course. And the Leper Affinity is my favorite riff of the 2000s.
Sweet.
There you go.
Oh, excellent variety. I like that. That was really
cool. I don't think we crossed over any. Zero.
Well, you gave me actual songs. Yeah, I guess we crossed over some.
We had some bands.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, very cool. Good stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just trying to look through my list here of other bands that I had. I had a whole bunch picked out for Rival Sons that didn't make the top 40. There's a lot of great Rival Sons songs. I had a couple Sabbath ones. I think there's a couple really good riffs from the 13 album. I had more Meshuggah, more Witchcraft. I had some Alter Bridge riffs on my list. I had some Overkill, some Saxon, some Arch Enemy, some Black Country Communion, Haken, Europe, couple BOC riffs, some Green Lung, Fu Manchu, Metal Church. I mean, Communic, so many other bands, Enslaved, Lamb of God, Amorphous, Uriah Heep, Graveyard, Maiden. But, ultimately I decided to go with the ones that I think just a little more impactful for me anyway. So
wicked.
Too many good ones. Too many good ones. All right. Well, Martin, it's been 2 weeks, so get us caught up on what's going on. You're in with the History in 5 Songs podcast, as well as the Contrarians and new books and things like that.
Well, let's see. So the last History in 5 Songs. So that's my audio podcast. Just Google it, you'll find it. But yeah, the last one was 1979 was the worst year in rock. Getting a lot of pushback on that, but that's a nice little debate we're having on Facebook. And then I've got so that comes out every week. Contrarians, we did an album cover show. We've been doing lots of those reliving old reviews is a useless tool of confusion. That's like a 5-minute clip thing. We've got about a dozen of those up now. And all the books are at martinpopoff.com. There's nothing really new recently, but the Led Zeppelin visual, we got the Queen Live, the updated Iron Maiden panel books. The Rainbow panel books is the most recent one, Run with the Wolves. So all that's at martinpopoff.com, and the Kicked in the Teeth podcast. Our latest one of that just went up on Power Age.
Cool. Lots going on. That's good to hear. Let's see, what do we got happening here? We've got, of course, the Professor's Picks coming up later this afternoon at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Tomorrow is the UK Connection, where Simon, Stephen, and myself will be talking about some of our favorite soundtracks. Do not miss that. And we also have ranking the albums of Vanilla Fudge. Don't miss last week's ranking the albums. John Gaffney and I ranked the albums of Warlord. Very cool episode. In fact, I'll be appearing on Lair of the Alchemist this weekend. I don't know when it's airing, but we're going to be talking about some of our favorite guitar and bass player duos, right? So that's coming up on Lair of the Alchemist. I'll be appearing over there. So that's what's happening here. I'm going to announce it right here. Save the date, folks, December 7th. For those of you who live within traveling distance, we're going to be doing a little Sea of Tranquility mini intimate fall fest at the Warehouse in Newburgh, New York. Rick Labonte and his band are going to be playing all sorts of tunes that night. Some of your favorites in classic rock, hard rock, and progressive rock and whatnot. And we're going to be having panel stuff during the day, meet and greets. There'll be food and drink available in the Warehouse all day for you. And it'll be fun just kind of hanging out with everybody before the holidays. And so that's going on. We're going to try and get as many SOT folks as possible in for this. So it should be fun. It's going to be intimate, small, but we wanted to do a little something. So that's coming up on December 7th. 11th. And so more info to come on that in the weeks ahead, but I did want to announce that. So this is on the web at www.seatranquility.org. We're on Facebook, we're on YouTube all together all the damn time. Please subscribe if you haven't already and click on that notification bell so you get alerted of all of our content as it posts. And please do hit the like button before you leave. Also down below, we got the links to our Ko-Fi page for channel donations, our merch page, and our Cameo page. And we've got channel memberships, so check that out as well. And thank you all in advance for all that. We'll see you next week here at the Fun House. For Martin Popoff, I am Pete Pardo. Have a good weekend, everybody. See you later. Bye-bye.